Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Kompasa. Today I'm going to go through two articles from Russia Today regarding the comments made by Alexei Arestovich, a ex-Zelensky aide, and also a top U.S. general, and they both cast doubts when it comes to defeating Moscow's military forces. So I'm going to start with this article. Ex-Zelensky aide casts doubt on Ukraine's military fortunes. There is no guarantee that Kiev will be able to defeat Moscow's forces, Alexei Arestovich has said. And I am so sorry, people. I'm going through a bad flu. That's why my voice is absolutely bad or horrible. Anyway. Ukraine has squandered the opportunity to prevail in the conflict with Russia, Alexei Arestovich, a former advisor to President Vladimir Zelensky, said on Friday. Speaking in an interview with political analyst Yuri Romanenko, Arestovich said that if everyone thinks that we are guaranteed to win the war, it seems very unlikely. What do you think? The assessment of Polish President Andrzej Duda that there is basically no certainty whether Ukraine will survive. Did he say that for no special reason, or did he say that based on some kind of information? Arestovich is asked. Duda said several days ago that a decisive moment in the conflict could come in a few weeks or months. And this moment is the answer to the question if Ukraine will survive or not. He explained, highlighting the need to support Kiev with Western-made weapons. Arestovich also warned that Ukraine should not consider itself invincible. We are invincible only until we are at each other's throats. When this happens, we're pretty much invincible in a short time and unexpectedly for ourselves. The former official stated that Ukraine had missed not only a military opportunity, we lost time, and the Russians began mobilization, restored the frontline situation, and even created superiority in some places. He added that not only the West did not give Ukraine weapons, we missed a public chance in terms of domestic and state policies. I disagree with that. The West did give plenty of weapons to Ukraine. The thing is that the West doesn't have enough weapons. Their military stockpiles are running out. And the problem is that the Ukrainian army is reliant, or used to be they are very used to Soviet-made weaponry. So when you send in HIMARS or Patriot missile systems and these new West American tanks or Leopard tanks, these German Leopard tanks, the thing is, it's gonna take months, perhaps years, to train Ukrainian soldiers to get used to these weapons, right? And the time is not on Ukraine's side. If we the people who probably are manning the HIMARS systems, the Patriots, and so forth, they are American, British, and Polish. Like these are people that are part of NATO, but they probably took a resignation. They signed a resignation and decided to fight as mercenaries in Ukraine. That's probably how it is. They are there for sure, but if they, how they resign, when they resign, that I have no idea. But anyway, on Tuesday, Arestovich resigned from his post, and after stating that the Russian missile that fell on a residential block and killed dozens in the southeastern city of Dnipro was shot down by Ukrainian air defenses. Later, the former aide apologized for his remarks, describing them as a serious mistake. On the day of the tragedy, Russia conducted a missile strike on the military command and control system of Ukraine and associated energy facilities, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. Commenting on the Dnipro incident, Kremlin press secretary Dmitry Peskov said that the Russian armed forces do not target residential buildings or social infrastructure facilities. The attacks are only aimed at military targets. Moscow ramped up strikes against Kiev's infrastructure in early October, citing the repeated Ukrainian sabotage on Russian soil, including the deadly bombing of the strategic Crimean Bridge. Yes, and it makes sense really because um, Russia has the industrial capacity. What we're seeing now is the return of industrial warfare, right? So let's say, they say Russia has the 10 times more artillery power than Ukraine does. So obviously, that in itself is, it makes sense that the Ukrainians are going to lose a lot more soldiers than the Russians. They say for every Russian soldier, 8 Ukrainian soldiers die. So basic military math. And I'm not a military person, but for me it just sounds logical, right? We can go to the next article. Okay, fighting Russia, very, very difficult for Ukraine, top US general. While Kiev has vowed to seize huge tracts of what is now Russian territory, Moscow's forces have won a series of key battles. Ukraine will struggle to make good on its promise to drive Russian forces out of its former territory, US Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, stated on Friday. While civilian officials in Washington insist that Kiev must keep fighting, Milley has repeatedly questioned the chances of success. President Biden, President Zelensky, and most of the leaders of Europe have said this war is likely to end in negotiation. Milley said during a meeting of the US-led defense contact group at Ramstein Air Base in Germany. From a military standpoint, this is a very, very difficult fight. The US alone has allocated more than $110 billion in military and economic aid to Kiev since last February, supplying Ukraine with progressively heavier armaments, including infantry fighting vehicles, anti-air systems, and more than 1 million artillery shells. Although Ukraine's NATO-trained troops appear on the cusp of receiving Western-designed main battle tanks, Russian forces have inflicted a series of crushing defeats on Kiev's military in recent weeks. The strategically important Donbass settlement of Solidar and Klishevka have both fallen to Moscow's troops, and the key city of Artyomovsk is now facing Russian encirclement. That is to say, Bakhmut. The Russians call it Artyomovsk, the Ukrainians call it Bakhmut, just to make it clear. I still maintain that for this year, it would be very, very difficult to militarily eject the Russian forces from every inch of Russian-occupied Ukraine. Milley said on Friday, referring to the 4 former regions of Ukraine that voted to join Russia in September and Crimea, an historic Russian territory that voted to rejoin the Russian Federation in 2014. That doesn't mean it can't happen, doesn't mean it won't happen, but it would be very, very difficult. Retaking all of this land, including Crimea, is stated objective of Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. To that end, he has the support of the U.S. with President Joe Biden and Defense Ministry Lloyd Austin, vowing to control his military for as long as it takes, and Secretary of State Antony Blinken declaring in December that fundamentally Ukrainians are making the decisions about whether they want to attempt to capture Crimea or not. However, Milley's public statements have been more tempered than those of Biden and his cabinet. Asked in November whether Ukraine stood a chance of retaking its pre-February territory, he said that the probability of this outcome is not high militarily. Well, to be honest with you, it's not even high diplomatically either. After the comments made by Angela Merkel and Hollande that the Minsk agreements were only a way to buy time to arm the Ukrainian army to fight the Russians and Russian-speaking people in the Donbass. Russia has no reason at all to trust the West. So, yeah. Nonetheless, and it also one thing that the Ukrainians are making, they're making the same mistake the Russians did back in the summer. They have stretched out their defense line too thin. And the Russians have pretty much reinforced their defense line by, mobilizing people, and also they have taken off the silk glove. They're bombing very important infrastructure now, and they didn't really do that in the same way before. So yeah, I appreciate all of you guys. Please like, subscribe, and share my videos.